Well, it says here that the internet can now see me, but unfortunately, I can't see myself, which is probably some of the issues we all have in our lives. For whatever reason, OBS is not allowing me at this point to have any kind of a live picture, which is in some ways. Well, it says here that the internet can now see me, but unfortunately, I can't see myself, which is probably some of the issues we all have in our lives. For whatever reason, OBS is not allowing me at this point to have any kind of a live picture, which is in some ways. Well, it says here that the internet can now see me, but unfortunately, I can't see myself, which is probably some of the issues we all have in our lives. For whatever reason, OBS is not allowing me at this point to have any kind of a live picture, which is well, it says here that the internet can now see me, but unfortunately, I can't see myself, which is probably some of the issues we all have in our lives. For whatever reason, OBS is not allowing me at this point to have any kind of a live picture, which is well, it says here that the internet can now see me, but okay, we are having some technical difficulties tonight. I don't know what they are, but the visuals. Is anybody in the chat room? Can't see. I can't see anybody else either. I don't know why that is. Can you hear me? Okay. Can people hear me? If you're in the chat room, let me know, because for whatever reason, the stream visually is not working. This is bad video settings. Sound is high-pitched feedback. Yes, something's going on here. Please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. Currently, keyframes are not being sent often enough. I don't know. Let me see if I can keyframe frequency. Yeah, I don't know. You can hear me, but it's really high pitched, right? Sounds like I'm good. Sound good now. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I could be on Blog Talk if I wanted to. I think what I might do is I might do this on Facebook maybe next week, if that's possible, which I might. Let me go back to the live stream here, live streaming. Let me see what's happening. Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear but not see? Yeah, I apologize for that. Normally this is really just a plug and play model, and so I'm not sure why. Let me go into the stream options. No delay, stream key. Yeah, so I think we're going to have to just wing it tonight with no video. Of course, so we're at the shadow of Mercury retrograde. We're just getting out of Mercury retrograde, which is kind of, I think, par for the course here. Well, welcome to the live stream, even though you cannot see me, which is unusual. Again, I don't know why. It's never happened before. So I'm going to try to just dance a little bit here as we get into the week ahead. We finally, by the way, I've been out, been having some family and from out of town, holidays, all the stuff related to that, and it was good. It was a good break. It was a good rest, and here we are, 2017, and it feels like we're really headed into a maelstrom as the year starts. And of course, the maelstrom I'm talking about is the inauguration coming up on the 20th, and I don't think I've seen this country more divided. However, let me just say this before I get into the whole division politics piece. And again, I apologize for not being able to see me. I've got the green light in front of me. I've got my encoder up, but I can't see myself in the encoder, and I'll have to figure out why that is, besides being a Mercury retrograde thing. But I just read. Let me just see this. What do we have here? Let me just try this on for size. This is video capture device. Yeah, I'm not happy. Not happy with it. We're living in a time where it appears that we're incredibly divided. And yes, that division is fairly clear. But if you look at some of the statistics that have come out over the last 48 hours, and some of these statistics were run by people who were doing informal polls coming from CNN and asking who people believe, whether it's Obama and the CIA or alternative media and Julian Assange. It's not even close. It is not even close. The statistics show that on the belief side, it is Julian Assange and alternative media, and it's like 93-7. And I asked myself, so what's going on? What's what's generating this deep quality of disbelief? And a lot of it has to do with what's, in my estimation, a lot of it has to do with what's happening astrologically. If you go back to the Mercury retrograde, which took place on the 15th of December, if you go back to that Mercury retrograde, which was at the same time as, well, hold on, it was at the time of the Electoral College. It was the Electoral College. When was that? It was at the 15th. Let me go back into the ephemeris here. Let me go to 2016. We're going to go to the exact day that Mercury went retrograde, and it was at 15 degrees Capricorn. So we're going back here. Going back to last year. How's that for a time check, time reference? So Mercury went retrograde on the 19th, and it was at 15 degrees. And, that's when we're checking in with the Electoral College. Now, what was really interesting about that is that people thought, and again, I apologize for no video, it's on my mind, but think of this as being like a blog talk radio show where you weren't able to see me anyway. Think about how people thought that the recall, or that the recall, which was taking place just before Mercury retrograde with Jill Stein, plus the vote Electoral College, at the time when Mercury went retrograde, could throw the entire election back onto itself. Okay? But what happened is that there were two things that took place. Because remember, the recall happened in the shadow of Mercury retrograde. Once they got into not the recall, but the vote count, challenging the vote count, which was kind of a recall, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, what happened was that they actually found that there were more votes for Trump than there were for Hillary Clinton. So it was actually adding to Trump's legitimacy. And I think that they were quite surprised, to be honest with you, unless Donald Trump is the master chess wizard of all time, threw down with Jill Stein and gave her all that money so that she could run it, and they knew that they would get those votes. I mean, that would have been the absolute stroke of genius of the century. I don't think that's what happened. But we saw the retrograde motion in action. Instead of the votes turning up for Hillary Clinton in a way that perhaps Jill Stein or other people wanted them to, they were going to Trump. Now, we look at what happened during the electoral vote. There were people that actually moved away from Hillary Clinton. And Trump actually, I believe, gained a vote or two during the process of electing him via the Electoral College. So it didn't throw any of that into a reverse motion. But I'll tell you what Mercury retrograde did during that time is, I believe, large swaths of people became extremely turned on by being turned off. And they were turned off by mainstream media, the mainstream message, and this idea that the elections have been hacked by Russia. There's something amazing taking place across the planet. People are waking up. They're waking up. This is the time. You are living in the Great Awakening. And it seems as though this should have happened years ago. Do you remember when you were a teenager? For better or worse, there are things about being a teenager that allow a teenager, and to some extent, this, bringing it back to astrology, this gets into the third Saturn phase. And the third Saturn phase happens between the age of 14 and 15. Okay? First Saturn phase, 0 to 7. When you get to 7 years old, this is when there is more separation. What happens when you're 7? I mean, you've been in theoretically kindergarten, preschool. 7's right around first, second grade. It's like the first 2 years really of elementary school, indoctrination and socialization. First Saturn square. Okay, you begin to make your way towards some greater community as a whole with Saturn. The second movement of Saturn happens 7 to 8 years later, 14, 15. This is when we begin to move away from natal Saturn at the first 180-degree angle in the chart. So Saturn's in the opposite sign, obviously. And so what happens during that time is there's this movement away from this kind of core Saturn experience, which represents the world, the cube, the fourth dimensional plane of consciousness. And then this new Saturn kind of momentum piece is about defining one's own Saturnian development, one's own identity, apart from the structure of which the individual was born into. And during that time, teenagers, adolescents, whatever word you want to use to describe them, they begin to pull away from their parents, and the parents' influence to some extent, right? They listen to different kinds of music, there were different kinds of fashion, and this is all part of a very important process. And as a result of that, there is a questioning that takes place of the parents' world and domain. It's important and happens during the Saturn opposition. And this is a great awakening in a lot of ways. This is when, to a large extent, youth can see the truth. They can see hypocrisy. They can see the cognitive dissonance, even though they wouldn't really call it that, in our society, in our culture. And this is even without any kind of social prompts. The unfortunate thing now is that there are so many social prompts, and there's a reason for this. It's because of the Saturn opposition when this occurs that programs can be imprinted during the Saturn. And by the way, MI6, Tavistock, the bearers of false cultural witness, they understand this, which is why teens, adolescents get jackhammered. And they get jackhammered with ideas and memes and programs that are inserted during this time of the Saturn opposition. Because this is when the identity is forming. It's pulling away from the locus of Saturn in the chart. So this is a time where our youth can wake up. It's a tricky time though, because at the same time as they're pulling apart and seeing themselves as separate from their Saturnian incarnation, and can begin to piece together some other picture, there's also this pushback from where they're coming from, which is why it can be very, very challenging through adolescence at that period, 14, 15. Now, if we can take our children and understand that that's what they're going through and not necessarily force feed them, but help them and guide them in understanding the nature of truth or the validity of hypocrisy without alienating them, it's recognizing that what they're going through is valid. It's a valid experience. But it's unfortunate, again, because there's all these influences that come rushing in. We're kind of there. This is where we are. We're at, in some ways, this Saturn opposition. We're not in any Saturn opposition in the grand scheme of astrology, but we're waking up. We're like that adolescent body that is uncurling its consciousness in moving away from those forms that we have trusted unsuspectingly for so many years. And it's a tricky time because as we awaken, and I don't care whether it's left or right, I mean, there's still an awakening process going on. Some of it might be flipped, inverted. But as we're doing this, it's important to understand that some of these forms, thought forms, ideas, they can come into the awakening process as well. And it looks as if we are, grabbing onto something that allows us to feel as if we're, awake or connected to the truth. And this is part of where we're at right now. And so when we have a Mercury retrograde in what sign? Capricorn, whose ruling planet is Saturn. Really, I mean, think about this. Think about the amount of information that's taken place since the Electoral College fiasco. So much has happened. We're seeing so much. I mean, people are, it's not even funny anymore. During the Mercury retrograde, they did this dog and pony show last week with John McCain and Lindsey Graham. And it was the same kind of hollow rhetoric and false information that they used in order to kickstart a war against Iraq. Yellow cake, rods, Najir, all that stuff, all false and almost all the same players. And here they are, they're trying it again. They're trying to attach it to Russia so that we can go, balls to the wall in a cyber attack war, flimsy, totally flimsy, and convince us that this is the truth. We've been here before. This is Mercury retrograde. If you're old enough to remember that dog and pony show that took place, then you'll remember that it was all based on falsified information. It was a reincarnation of that event. And again, with some of the same players. That's where Mercury retrograde took us. It didn't take us to reverse the course of Trump's election through the Electoral College. The other thing, too, remember now, Mercury is communication, and Capricorn is the mainstream. We often associate communication with Aquarius, and it's true. It's true. Communication is connected to Aquarius. It is the airwaves. Remember back in the day when you had a TV, you had an antenna on your roof? Well, that antenna was picking up on waves, analog signals. Those analog signals were translated to your television or your radio for that matter. The radio had an antenna, right? Picking up on radio signals, waves of information, waves of energy coming into your life through these devices. This is when radio and television were determined to be Aquarian mediums. Remember the waves, the wave bringer, Aquarius, air sign through the air, waves traveling through the air. Now, they are still Aquarian mediums, even though most of the time now it's cable. Unless, of course, you're dealing with a router inside your house. Well, those are waves, right? So, where we are with all of this is the fact that Mercury, which is communication, Capricorn, which is the mainstream, that's what Capricorn represents, it's gone backwards. We're reviewing our relationship with information. And for the most part, it is coming up wanting. That there is clearly a major disconnect in a way that we've never, ever truly experienced before. The problem with what happened with this whole kind of run-up and this dog and pony show with Lindsey Graham and John McCain and all these clowns and John Brennan, the reason why that did not work was because we were not under a severe state of trauma. This is why it worked last time. Everybody was numb. Everybody was completely out of their collective body, their individual, maybe the collective body, after 9/11. I wasn't. I was pissed off. That's how it worked. Trauma, trauma, trauma. There's no trauma. They had no trauma-based event running up to this thing. Where was the trauma? Cyber attack? Fake news? Washington Post? No, there's no trauma. So what we had is we had hollow rhetoric, which was amazing. It was amazing to witness. Hollow men. And this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn encapsulated that because we had to rethink what is our relationship with the mainstream media. I can tell you right now, there are people that have been watching and listening and reading my stuff. I've got a new post up on my site, by the way, for years. For years. And they're switched on. They're totally switched on. They know what's happening. And some know what's really happening in a very, dark and unfortunate kind of way. But it's not you. And I apologize. It's not you or the people that have been a part of this, whether they're still here or not. It's the people that don't listen to my show or other people's shows that are similar. They're the ones that are waking up. They're the ones that are reviewing their relationship with this kind of media. WikiLeaks was an atom bomb, a total atom bomb. WikiLeaks was the Nagasaki of the mainstream media. Total Nagasaki. And the mainstream media will never recover from this. Now, if we go back and we look at the relationship between Saturn, we go back in time to 2016, and this is the battle for truth, right? We go to 2016, and it's the run-up to the election. And we go into September. It's we're in the stretch run. And we're seeing Saturn square Neptune exact. At the beginning of September, is that Labor Day weekend? So we have that Saturn-Neptune square. Now remember, when these transits happen, they happen briefly, right? Now, in Saturn's case, it's backwards and forwards, and there's a lot of scrubbing. They happen briefly, but I'm telling you, when these transits occur now, they are planet-altering because the volume is getting turned up to such a degree. The critical mass is assembling in such a way that when there is a transit, it is powerful, it is profound, and it is transformational. So we get in the Saturn-Neptune square, what happens? Saturn in Sagittarius wants to get to some kind of imminent truth. That is the nature of Sagittarius. And with Saturn, it's not quite as obsessive as Pluto, but there is this determined energy. We're going to get it. We got to get it. We got to get this, right? That's the nature of Saturn. At first, you don't want it. At first, you're like, eh. And then it's like, okay. You take it on. You say, okay, I'm going to do this. That's the nature of Saturn. Anytime you go through the Saturn transit, the first pass over a planet or an aspect to a planet, you don't dig it. And you try and you think you might be able to get through it a little bit. I got that. And then Saturn hits retrograde, and it brings you back and like, and you got to go through it again. And this time, you have to bear down a little bit, work harder. You might even see your shortcomings during the second retrograde of Saturn. And then the third one, because there's 3 retrogrades of Saturn, the third one, you get to perfect it, right? You get to perfect it. So we were, at that point in time, Saturn was moving direct. And it was in square with Neptune, which was retrograde. And again, what are we doing? We had Uranus retrograde, we had Neptune retrograde, we had Pluto. All 3 planets were retrograde on Labor Day. And Neptune and Pisces, man, there's so much. I did a thing on Pisces on the site. You can go and check it out. But there's so much with Neptune and Pisces. It is everything. It is oceanic. It is the potentiality at a collective level, at a social level with Neptune and Pisces has everything a part of it. But theoretically, there's this apex of Neptune in Pisces. And at that point in time, it was really in second decan, which puts it in what decan? It puts it in the Cancerian decan, right? So we're talking about all the Cancerian issues that Donald Trump really came to tap into. He tapped into those Cancerian issues. Home and family and jobs, all those things. Safety, the border. It's 10 degrees. 10 degrees Pisces. Second decan. But guess what? And on that day, September 1st, the 2 are an exact square. But there's so much deception. There's so much deception potentially with Neptune, especially Neptune and Pisces. What's real? What is real? This is something that we've been grabbing. But Saturn now, and has been the crowbar. It's been the crowbar to Neptune. It's like cracking it open. Let's use the crowbar, Saturn, Sagittarius. And it's the interesting thing too, right? And this is another kind of flip. Think about this. Pre-internet, just like we had Aquarius represent the media, mass media, the medium of the media, radio and television. At one point, publishing was kind of a big deal in this country. Magazines, newspapers, Sagittarian, it's the Sagittarian realm. Now, that publishing is where it's inside the box. You click on your TV, you click on your computer, and you're reading newspapers, magazines, blogs. You're reading comments. You're reading things like forums. It's all inside now. So we have to redefine what publishing really is, and the limitations of the old publishing. Look at New York Times, look at the Washington Post. These are old scion, Saturn, Sagittarius publishing. Squaring up against Neptune, not really meeting the truth meter. The new medium of publishing, which is the internet and blogs and groups like 4chan and Reddit. Whether you're into them or not, this is it. This is the new form of publishing. It's self-publishing. It's citizen journalism, squaring Neptune, getting into that space, getting into that place where we're really trying to define and redefine what the truth is. This has been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Now, Neptune went retrograde, and it went all the way back. Back. Sounds like Chris Berman. It went all the way back to 14. So it went back into the Piscean decan in November. It actually went there before November. So it was like 9.65 roughly. So it was there, went back there in right around October. So it retreated back into the Piscean. By the way, this is the last time it'll be in the Piscean decan, is that retrograde. Now it's gone direct, and here we are in 2017, and it's moved. I think it's at 11 degrees now. Let me just check the, let's see, Pisces, that's 9 degrees. 9 degrees, but it's back, it is back into the Cancerian decan, which it will remain, by the way, for quite a while. It's not going to go into the Scorpionic decan of Neptune and Pisces until it gets to 19 degrees. And Neptune moves incredibly slowly. So we're in a different phase of Neptune now. And what happened was we were already at 11 at one point in time with Neptune and Pisces. We were already in the Cancerian decan, right? But we had to go back. We had to go back and rediscover something missing. Something missing from our present. We had to go to the past. And Trump is revisionist. Make America great again. He's revisioning or re-envisioning how America can be. So we had to go back in time and grab something, whether you agree with it or not. And we went into the Cancerian decan. Why do you think Bernie Sanders was so popular? He had some of the same ideals, some of the same Cancerian ideals. Because whether you're on the left or the right, both sides realized that they were living, for the most part, a hollow, synthetic, and unrepresented existence, that nobody was speaking for them. And that their ideas and values, which they hold close to their heart, were not being represented. And so it's very fascinating. So now everything's moving forward. I'm looking at the current planets. Sun, 19, Capricorn. Moon, of course, Gemini, 3 degrees. We're coming up here on a full moon shortly. In Cancer. Interesting, huh? Mercury, Sagittarius, 28 degrees. Conjunct, 1 degree off the galactic center. Moving forward. Venus, 6 Pisces. Mars, 15 Pisces. Forward, forward, forward. We're going to come up here on a Venus-Mars conjunction. That's wonderful. That can be really blissful in Pisces. My oh my, it's not that far away. Remember, Pisces, in terms of the U.S. chart, is down in the 4th house. Give us your tired, your huddled masses. That is the nature. And again, I'm using the Sagittarius rising chart for the United States. Pisces down in the 4th house. So we're going to have a Venus-Mars conjunction coming up here. Wouldn't it be great if we could all be on the same page again? Wouldn't that be wonderful? That'd be awesome. Everybody pulling together, everybody, believing in generally the same thing. That we live in a great place. That no matter what the color of the person next to us is, they have our backs. Wouldn't that be great? because we're all involved in something bigger and larger, a bigger enterprise than our own self-interests. With Uranus and Aries, we've had a challenge with that because people have woken up to their self-interest, right? I'm not being represented. My group's not being represented. I need to be heard, which is fine. It's fine. We it's okay. Not any group has a patent on that realization, whether you agree with them or not. How that gets activated and act out is a completely different thing. Completely different. Last week we had Mars conjunction with Neptune. Came into it at the beginning of the year, New Year's Day. Foggy, hungover. People lamenting about 2016. Worst year ever, worst year ever, worst. That's very Piscean energy in a lot of ways. It can be very Piscean. There's a lamentation of inside of Pisces. And I just had a big article on Pisces post on my site. And I think Pisces is probably the most powerful sign in the zodiac, in my estimation, because it has all the 11 signs in it. They all rush and roar into Pisces, the great cosmic ocean. But after the beginning of the year, we saw some very disturbing things. Still, with the Mars-Neptune conjunction. And I talked about it. I didn't talk about it, well, not publicly, but on my website. The abduction and the beating of the mentally challenged, disabled young man by the four young people in Chicago. Extremely unfortunate. Victims, in many ways, abusing other victims, right, to a large extent. And yet, that Mars energy, that aggressive Mars energy, and Neptune and Pisces, in the 12th house, it's associated with people that are less fortunate in a lot of ways. Hospitals, sanitariums, prisons, these are the denizens of the 12th house. Pisces house. When people have a strong Piscean or Neptunian urge in their chart, they are selfless. They're selfless. When I was 20, I had Neptune transiting my first house. And I saw the highs and the lows of Neptune in my first house. Trust me, it was in Sagittarius. I clearly saw the highs. And there was a period in time with Neptune, it was in my first house, where I spent time working with autistic kids, severely disabled young people. I worked with kids with learning disabilities. And I'm just bearing witness to Neptune. That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling you this because of how great that might have been, because there were other parts of my life during that time that weren't that great. But I was drawn to this. It was very Neptunian. It was the less fortunate. That's Pisces. That's Neptune. It brings us, it cracks our hearts open with compassion. And these people, young people, older people who go through the challenges that many of us cannot comprehend, in many ways, their role is to become agents of that awakening. That they're actually playing something, they're playing a role. And I'm not saying this to give the makers of vaccines and the pharmaceutical industry a break. I'm not saying this because I think they're creating a legacy of saints. Don't get me wrong. Because that's a whole other order of Piscean deception. What I'm saying is that there are people who have had severe issues and they have awakened the compassion the care, and the unconditional love in many others. And that is a Piscean activity. But when we get into Mars and we get into that Mars-Neptune conjunction, there was violence. There was aggression against the Neptunian, Piscean, representative of that consciousness, that young man. And it was horrible. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Well, here's a trip. I'm going to just get off straight off the res, as they say, a little bit here. But it was about 2 days after this brouhaha and the public awareness and the rising anger and rage against these 4 18-year-olds who were clearly, in a lot of ways, you could look at their photos, clearly unrepentant in their photos. Boy, those are intense photos. There's anger in those photos. But just 2 days after that, we have this event down in Fort Lauderdale. A fascinating event. Again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a guy who was, what? He was a veteran. He was in the army. He even said he was recruited to fight for ISIS, and he went nuts. What is the truth here? Right? I mean, it's a wide square because we've got Neptune at 9, and when this happened, I think Mars is what 13? Still a square. Again, violence. But here we go. I mean, who's the victim? He was almost like some weird Manchurian candidate that was activated. He's alive. This guy is alive. I mean, you can tell when these things are real, and I think that was a real event, by the way. Whether he was actually programmed and triggered to do that, or he actually did it. He carried weapons on a plane. This is not good, by the way. If you plan on traveling, this TSA stuff is going to get ugly. And Trump is going to be no liberator of the TSA, trust me. He's not going to send them back to where they once were, which was a complete non-entity and part of the FAA. Really, I believe that's what it was. It was Borders, Customs, FAA, right? That's who did it. And then they created the TSA. Don't get me started. Anyway, so this guy comes into Fort Lauderdale, and I believe that this is a real event. There were people that were bleeding, and he was captured alive. Most times, when it's a non-event, the people are dead, theoretically, or they never even existed in the first place. But guess what? Now we're not talking about what happened in Chicago. Now we're talking about this other guy, and the threats, and the this, and the that. Wow. Interesting. I know this has probably nothing to do with the event, but it's kind of interesting that the airport is called Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, right? Because there's a Hollywood in Florida, not just California. Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood. And I believe the guy who is the police chief there, or the sheriff there, his last name happens to be Israel. Again, I don't think it has anything to do with anything. I just think it's interesting. That's all I'm saying. But that was fascinating and dark, really. This Mars Neptune conjunction and the aggression with Mars. But we're going to have a Mars Venus conjunction coming up here, and maybe, just maybe, it could be healing. I mean, think again. I'm singing a little kumbaya. It's 2017. It's early in the year, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to put it out there that 2017 is a make or break year for us. It really is. Now, some people, futurists, are saying, well, 2020 is when we're going to see this continued upswing in violence up through 2020. That could very well be the case. That would be the next election cycle. And from what we've seen with Obama dragging his heels out of the Oval Office, hiring Eric Holder to go through and just completely redistrict California, that the other side is they're up for a fight. They're not going anywhere. Anywhere. And this could be a prolonged battle for the next 4 years, provided Trump does not get assassinated, which is a possibility. Possibility. But Trump is playing with some, I think, energetically heavy hitters, whether you like him or not. He has done things that other people have not been able to do. And I don't think, and I've listened, trust me, I have listened to so many people. I've listened to every expert on Trump. And you can't find 5 of them who agree completely about who he is and what his agenda is. You can't. You can't find 5 of them. You know, it's very challenging because that's the nature of that Sun-Uranus conjunction. You know, the other thing I was thinking about Trump's chart, remember, he's got a Neptune square, right? A Neptune square. Just make sure I get this right. I don't want to screw it up. I want to make sure my reputation is intact. All right, so Trump, go to his chart. All right, Donald, where are you? I should have these things pre-programmed so I can just seamlessly go from one thing to another. Balls in the air. By the way, I did a chart for the internet. Maybe I'll do a post on that. It was when the internet was created in 1969. It's a very interesting chart. And it's not the type of chart that you would think the internet would look like. The internet came online. They made the first, basically, station-to-station call connection from UCLA to Stanford on October 29th, 1969. So you've got the 11 vibration with the 2 and the 9 with the internet. But the internet is a Scorpio medium. Think about that. It's a Scorpio medium. And so what are we trying to do with the internet? Well, a lot of things. The first business that made a huge impact on the internet was porn. It's a very Scorpionic kind of expression. And then, you know, ultimately, what did we get to? We're getting to uncovering things. The internet's been our tool to uncover stuff. Okay, so the Neptune square, this is what I thought it was. Just wanted to make sure. The Neptune square in Trump's chart is to Mercury. And I thought about this for a long time. And usually, when you see a Neptune-Mercury square, you see a prevaricator. You see a liar. That's what a Neptune-Mercury square represents. It represents prevarication. Because Mercury is how we communicate, and Neptune squares obfuscate the communication, blurs the lines. But I was thinking about this as it relates to this whole Russia thing and the hacking, and I think it's a bunch of bullshit, to be honest with you. I don't believe that Trump is some Russian agent. If anything, the relationship with Russia was clearly with the Clintons, and uranium with the Russians. Uranium won, right? So I wondered if the reverse could happen. That it would not be the individual who is the liar, but it would be the collective who would be engaged in an ongoing program of deception, distortion, and deceit as part of the Mercury-Neptune square. And with Trump's natal Mercury in the 11th house, remember, that is the collective. That's the collective. That is the realm of Aquarius and mass media. And it's his Mercury, which is personal, up in the 11th house. And it is Neptune, which is transpersonal, down in the second house. If you look at the character assassination, and I'm sure I got into hot water tonight on Twitter because people were talking about how Donald Trump was mocking a disabled person at one point. Again, Mars, Neptune, and Mars Pisces and Mars Neptune. But the Neptune square is coming from what? His base, his foundation. You know, it's values. Values. So if we turn Neptune and make it a pivot into this collective energy in the chart, that the distortion is around those core values. Homophobic, anti-Semitic, racist, all those things squaring Mercury, which is the projection, right? The projection of the voice through the collective. We could make, seriously, a case for this. And with Jupiter retrograding, and we'll retrograde back to about 14 degrees, it won't go, because he's got Neptune in Libra, Chiron in Libra, Jupiter in Libra. It won't go back that far to the Neptune conjunction, but I bet you we could trace this, which would have gone back to, what, roughly right around Labor Day, when Jupiter was going into Libra and moving from the sign of Virgo. It hit that Neptune. And quite possibly that is when a lot of the distortion took place. But it's the second house. It is the core values. Core. And they're material values. But what's interesting here is that it's Libra, so it's all about fairness and being just. This, we're living in incredibly fascinating times. Just totally fascinating times. I wanted to go back to the planets for this week. I just want to, because tonight's only going to be an hour show, because I don't know how many people are actually watching. I hope some of you are listening. So we're just going to do an hour show tonight. I got to fix the video portion of this thing. It's not acceptable. All right, so we've got the sun at 19 Capricorn setting off at the beginning of the week. The full moon, just to give you, again, it's in the sign of Cancer, so it's going to be in opposition to the Capricornian energies that we have been involved with since the 23rd of December. So we're looking at Wednesday. Moon moves into Cancer, and it's a kind of a long moon, to be honest with you. Goes into Cancer on Wednesday, and then Tuesday it's at 15 degrees, or that's the midpoint. And it gets to 29 degrees on this Friday, the 13th. So we're going into a lunar phase shift on Friday from Cancer to Leo. So we'll have a voided course period during that time. So about 2.5 days. It's about right. It just feels longer. It feels like this moon looks like it's a little bit longer than other 2.5 day cycles. But the actual full moon will be taking place late on Thursday, early on Friday, when the sun is at 22 degrees Capricorn. So the moon enters into Cancer on Wednesday, goes full late Thursday, early Friday. It's roughly about a 3-day cycle. That could, Capricorn moon is a very powerful moon. It's not a supermoon, so we're out of that 3-phase supermoon that we went through already, which was, I believe, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Now we're into Cancer. The moon is theoretically a little bit further away, but it's a powerful moon, the Cancer full moon, and it illuminates Cancerian issues in our lives. It illuminates those areas where we feel secure or insecure, because the two, Capricorn and Cancer, when they are working together, it's wonderful. You have you have a home base, a place where you can recharge, get good food, get good sleep, and boom, you go to the 10th house, you go to Capricorn, and you're able to do your thing. Right? But if there is a rupture or a schism in that operation, then what you're dealing with is you're dealing with potential for imbalance, or illuminating where one of those areas could be out of balance or needs more attention. So everybody dealing with Cancer, it's home life. Doesn't matter what sign or where Cancer is in your chart. It does matter. But everybody will be dealing with issues around home and emotions and values, and defining those values wherever it shows up inside the chart. But we'll all go through it together, because there's a collective experience and an individual experience. What is it to be an American? What is it to be a citizen of the planet? Being an American is an extremely small slice of our consciousness. You zoom out, and we are the expressions of eternity, slowed down through time. Is everybody willing to live like that? I don't know. Be kind of cool if we are, or were, but that's not really the case. Where we are is where we are, and we're in a place now where things are fragmented, truly fragmented. 2017 is an important year. It's an important year. And I want to get into, not tonight, I've had a ton of family and experience over the last 2.5 weeks, which is why I've been off the radar. And I'm just getting back into the swing of things. I have some, it was funny. I started to work. Everybody eventually went home by Thursday. So it was like Thursday, Friday, and then I get my kid back on Friday afternoon, and I have him all weekend. So this has been quite an extended run, and it's and I don't get my son a lot. So when he's with me, I try to spend some time with him. And I tell you, man, it's a trip. Being a parent's a trip, especially of a Pisces. We went and saw Mute Math last night. I took him to his first nightclub concert, all ages show here in Austin. And the band Mute Math from New Orleans, if you haven't found them, you haven't discovered them, find them. They're amazing. They're on tour. If you can see them in wherever you live, go. Trust me. Change your life. One of the things that's interesting, again, Piscean, I don't know everybody's sign. I think the lead singer is a Scorpio, Paul Meany. I think that's his name. Anyway, they're Christians. Mute Math are Christians. And you can hear it in their music. You can actually hear it in their music. If you listen for it. If you weren't listening for it, you wouldn't hear it. Kind of the best kind of Christianity, really, I can think of in a lot of ways. It's in there. It's in there if you want it. If not, you can certainly enjoy the music. But there's an energy with these guys. I'm telling you. There's like some supercharged Holy Spirit energy with this band. It's really funny. When I was back on Facebook, oh man, I'm having butthole senior moments. Anyway, go see them. Just go see Mute Math. I took my son there last night. First show, it was great. Anyway, I'm getting back into the swing of things. And I am going to get to 2017 and predictions. I'm going back out to Colorado this week and have another session with Regina. By the way, my last show with her, or the show that I did previously, is up on Gaia right now. 83% of the people like it. 17% don't. I guess that's not bad. I'm getting a B in terms of the public with my stuff. Not everybody is not everybody's cup of tea. But anyway, we start the week off with the Gemini moon. Now we're in a waxing phase. And so tomorrow there's a lot of chatter. And the moon, our friend La Lune, will do a couple things, right? By the time it moves into Cancer, on Wednesday, it will be in opposition to Mars. Right? It'll be in opposition. I'm sorry, Saturn. Saturn. Be in opposition to Saturn. When the moon is right around the 10th, let's see, right around the 12th. This is a tricky day, by the way. I think this is probably the trickiest day. This week is the 12th, because we have not just the full moon, which happens, of course, every time right around this year, right around this time every year, but we have the opposition to Pluto taking place. And over the weekend, we have this square going off. It's right before the election. It's like, or not the election, the inauguration. And that happens on the 19th and the 18th. Really, it's around I take that back, it's the 18th. That's a week from this coming Wednesday. And that's the square to Saturn. That's, again, Mars is violence. Mars is action. And in Pisces, I think there can be something connected to the masses around this. I was pondering on my blog. I was pondering if there would be some kind of a false flag in and around Washington, D.C. as a run-up to the inauguration. And that the false flag might even be perpetrated by Trump himself. Now, hear me out. The reason why I thought about this is because if you were Donald Trump, you wanted to make sure that the perimeter was clear. Like, you could literally block off the White House for roughly 5 miles or 4 miles around it. However much they could do, right? They could lock things down because of a security threat and therefore completely neutralize and eliminate any kind of demonstration. Would you do it? Would you do it? It would be incredibly deceptive. Of course it would. But it might be the smartest thing that he could do in some ways. I'm not advocating it. I'm not a big fan of deception. But think about it. That's that Mars-Saturn square. And the run-up, of course, is this week. Moon in Gemini, a lot of chatter. It's a lot of chatter. We're going to have a Moon, Saturn opposition. Gemini, of course, duality, duplicity, multiplicity, chatter, chatter, chatter. And of course, the Moon will be in opposition to Donald Trump's Moon, which is down in the fourth house of this chart in Sagittarius. But if you go to work tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of water cooler talk, gossip, which is, I think, would be normal for starting the week on a Gemini Moon, cresting Gemini Moon. Next month we go into Moon in Leo, and that's when we get into the eclipses. And I'm going to talk about the eclipses next week. I'm going to sort this whole thing out with the video camera. I'm going to talk about the eclipses coming. They're big eclipses. The big one in August of this year, it's massive. It's over the United States. It's a huge eclipse. And it really could have an impact on the country and the world in a pretty significant way. We talked about Mercury at 28 Capricorn. I'm sorry, 28 Sagittarius. And that will continue to be at 28 Sagittarino. Yeah, so here we are right there. And then we're moving to, there it is, 28. It goes to 29. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days with Mercury and Sagittarius. Those critical degrees of Sag at 29th degree. Keep your eyes on the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. By the way, today is David Bowie's birthday. David Bowie died. It was on, he died on Sunday night. So technically it was a year ago on Sunday. I remember waking up on Monday, people were texting me that he died. And last year his birthday fell on Friday. But because I believe this is a leap year, we move ahead 2 days. So normally his birthday would have been on Saturday, but it is tonight on Sunday, which is unusual, right? Because he died on a Sunday and his birthday is on a Sunday for this year. Very unusual energy for Bowie and that event. Anyway, these 3 days, circle them. Circle them. Thursday. We have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Mercury goes back to 0 Capricorn. It finally gets out of the shadow on the 29th of January at 16 degrees. So we have Mercury coming in on the 13th at 0 Capricorn. Interesting. And on the final degrees of that Cancer full moon. But that 29th degree, the anaretic degree, there's something we have to get. Some missing piece of information. Some galactic intelligence that wants to reach across to us so that we can get a better sense as to what's happening on the planet. We have the Venus-Mars conjunction coming up, and that's going to happen. Let's see what we got here. Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars, the closest they get, the closest the two lovers get, are on the, let's see, it's right there on the 24th. 24th, 4 degrees, 6 degrees, 6 degrees. 6 degrees is as close as they get. And that's, you know what, that's a conjunction. 24th of this month. Not quite synchronous unity between the masculine and the feminine, but not too bad. You know, we'll take it. We'll take it. We need to mend, man. We need to build some bridges. We need to do some healing. Big time healing. At some point, people have to burn out on the fact that they've been aggrieved. I don't think there's anything good that comes of continuing to establish a pattern of aggrievement. That was Hammurabi's law. And that's a very different kind of law. But that said, I really think that maybe some people have to suffer the consequences of their actions, which has not been the case. When was the last time, really, a politician or a number of politicians just got flayed, man, and put into prison? When was the last time that happened? It generally doesn't. The last politician that wound up getting really summarily dismissed, who was Tom DeLay? Might have been Tom DeLay, who was riding pretty high as minority right speaker, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He was taken down. Randall Duke Cunningham, the guy that represented my district in San Diego, but most times they don't. I'd be okay with a little Hammurabi law. Some bankers and some politicians. People who know no limit. That's the issue. What else do we have here? Let's see. We got the Venus in Pisces. Compassion. Funny that I wrote about Pisces the other day. Compassion. Practice it. Jupiter in Libra, that's about to go retrograde. It's the next planet that goes retrograde. And we've got all these planets now that are moving forward, right? It's like the Starship Enterprise, where Kirk says, warp speed, Scotty, and bang, Mr. Scott slams that thing into warp speed, and whoosh, right? They're off. So, we're at warp speed now with all these planets not moving retrograde. All the planets are pulling together. It's like, come on, come on, come on. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Get up to speed, get up to speed, get up to speed. It's a brief window in time. Brief. Because Jupiter goes retrograde. And Jupiter goes retrograde on the 6th of February. So we got a window. A little less than 30 days now. Take advantage of the non-retrogradism. Make some momentum. Forward progress in your life. Nothing is holding you back. Nothing. Nothing. In any area. I think, it's hard to kind of shake off this funky feeling. There is a funky feeling in the air. Can you feel it? It's there. It's there. It's hard to shake off, but come on now. No retrograde planets, nothing holding you back. Put it in hyperspace drive and cover some ground. It's the beginning of the year. Great time to do it. Whatever it is you want to do. All right. Let's see. We have Saturn. Sagittarius 22. That's creeping, creeping, creeping. There's Saturn in Sag. Now it's in the last decan, which puts it into the Leo decan. Very dramatic. Dramatic displays of truth, freedom, solidarity, independence, sovereignty, wisdom. Uranus is at 20. So we've been in a Saturn-Uranus trine. I've been there for a while. We're in a Saturn-Jupiter sextile. And that's going to get closer and tighter. That gets pretty exact. And we're talking 22. So Jupiter's at 22 starting on the 11th, 3 days from now. And Saturn's at 22. I think that's going to be another bump for the stock market on Wednesday. Let's see. We've got, by the way, don't ever bet against. I really thought that Eli Manning Capricorn, who always does well in January because he's a Capricorn. I really thought that he could win today in Green Bay, but it's that lucky Sagittarian, Aaron Rodgers, who won today with Randall Cobb catching 3 touchdown passes. Aaron Rodgers is kind of amazing. He's an interesting character. A lot more to Aaron Rodgers than meets the eye. There's a rumor that Aaron Rodgers is not that I care, but he's bisexual. And as such, he's not wedded to your typical kinds of perceptions as a football player in the National Football League. I really don't care. But it's a rumor. Let's see, we've got Neptune and Pisces at 9 degrees. We've talked ad nauseum about that. Pluto in Capricorn. 17 degrees. We are, you know, I was thinking about Pluto in Capricorn. The last time Pluto was in Capricorn, it was the United States that had its revolution. Pluto's in Capricorn again. And could it be possible? Could it be possible that the entire world will experience the same kind of revolution that the United States experienced in 1776? Could that be possible? Is that the next level of Pluto in Capricorn? Because I've seen people, astrologers, talk about how with the Pluto return, the United States will be over as we know it. Well, maybe it's the rest of the planet that takes on a United States kind of revolutionary Brexit energy. And then it's a world revolution towards ideals that have to do with freedom, sovereignty, all these quaint notions of individual self-rule and self-governance. What an amazing concept. Now, I was talking with my girlfriend last week when she was here, and we were talking about how the millennials, for the most part, I'm not saying every millennial is the same. I mean, that's just like saying, I know another astrologer who hates baby boomers. Thinks baby boomers are the scourge of the planet. He'd kill them all if he could. But they're not all bad people. Yeah, were they the first at the table? Did they have all the resources? Did they squander their opportunity? Just like when Peter Fonda says to Dennis Hopper at the end of Easy Rider, man, we blew it. Was that really the mantra of the baby boomers? Well, look at my generation. I'm not really a baby boomer. I'm at the end of the baby boom. Who do we have? We've got this guy in the White House. You know, in my generation, theoretically, are the parents of the millennials. I mean, really, if you think about it, my generation was around 24, 25, 26. Back in 1986, 87, 88, 89, 90, having babies. Millennial babies. I wasn't one of them. God, there's no way I could. I mean, there was a time in my life where I probably could have had a kid, but it had been a certain time. Or it had been like right out of college. My college sweetheart. That might have worked. Everything after that, I was a lost cause for about 15 years. But that's another story. But yeah, think of Pluto and Capricorn as the energy of a global revolution, not just contained. Now, it happened then. It happened, you know, the entire world was having Pluto and Capricorn at that time, right? The French had their own version of it. You know, I'm not sure. Pluto might have been in Aquarius. I'd have to look it up. Certainly Lafayette was here. He was part of the French Revolution. Lafayette's an interesting guy. He was a good Mason. Anyway, just thoughts, just ruminations on Pluto and Capricorn for the global revolution. True node is at Virgo. Get ready to move into Leo. All you Pluto and Leo people. All you boomers, here comes the true node. You get one last shot here. Next 1 year, basically 1.5 years, you get to become aware of your mortality. And what are you going to do with it? Chiron, 21, Pisces. What's Chiron doing? It's in a square with Saturn right now. To me, that's Obamacare. That's health. That's going to be a big issue with this Saturn-Chiron square. Ooh, get ready for that one. All right, let me just check in, see if there's any people still in the chat room. All right. Okay, we still have some people in there. Oh, great, 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 great. Okay, they're there. Right on, thank you. Don't have a lot of people in the chat room. There's 39. That's about right. Let's see, we got, saw you around, glad you're back. I was enjoying it. Good, thank you. Nice to see everybody in the chat room. And let's try, I'm going to try to, look, my goal in 2017, and it may sound completely egotistical, but my goal 2017 is to take this to another level. And I've already done some steps in order to do this. So I'm gonna work on a completely new kind of revamped studio. It's coming, and the live streams are going to be probably a little bit different coming up here. So just keep that in mind. That is part of my goal for 2017. All right, I just want to tell everybody thank you for your support. Many of you I've never met. Some of you I've talked with on Skype or I've had readings with. Some of you I've seen in person. I just want to share with you how much the relationship and relationships with all of you mean to me. They keep me going, they keep me engaged in the work, and they give me a sense of purpose that is invaluable, absolutely invaluable. And you, in your own way, are a part of me. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart as I share these words with you. So have a wonderful week. Welcome to 2017. Hang on to your hats. It's going to be a wild ride, but the rewards for people who are there and on board and willing to take the risk are going to be tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. I'm now ending the live stream, and you know what to do. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'll see everybody tomorrow for 15 minutes of flame.